So what did you do on your honeymoon? Laura Doherty's idea of wedded bliss is to grab hubby's hand and jet off to a ranch in Kenya, Africa, to found a school for at-risk boys in Baltimore. I guess romance is where you find it, particularly when you spring from a family of dedicated teachers. It has been said that education is a better defender of liberty than a whole standing army. And if that's so, Miss Doherty is one of liberty's most vital, creative protectors. As president and CEO of the Baltimore Curriculum Project, Laura serves as an academic turnaround specialist, taking failing schools that are failing their students and transforming them into enthusiastic temples of learning. To achieve this miracle, she teaches beyond the classroom, involving faculty, staff, parents, and the entire community. A true entrepreneur, Laura also eclectically gathers a host of innovative, proven educational tools. And she custom tailors each of these to the youngsters in this room, in this environment today. The result is classrooms filled with eager achievers. Students from their own experience discover a success that is more addictive than any street drug. In short, Laura and the Baltimore Curriculum team are engineering the education each child needs and deserves. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Laura Doherty.
I would like to thank Bart Jackson and Prometheus Publishing for including me in this year's group of honorees. I love my work and our school communities, and it's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to talk about them. My two favorite sentiments around teaching and learning are as follows. First, Paulo Freire, author of Pedagogy of the Oppressed, held the idea that the purpose of education is liberation. And my second favorite sentiment can be found on many a coffee mug and bumper sticker, and it reads, "I'm a teacher. What's your superpower?" Teaching, when done right, does feel like a superpower. And education absolutely has the power to liberate, to open doors, to open minds, and bring about change. Unfortunately, these sentiments are often at odds with the reality of the teaching profession and with what is happening in many schools across the country. Reality is that many new teachers leave the profession within 5 years. Some say it's close to half that actually leave, and literacy rates in this country remain shockingly low and appear permanently stagnant. Many teachers enter the classroom with little field training, and nearly none of them have had field experience in which they get to see how a math teacher starts a new year, establishing norms and routines and relationships. So they end up not really knowing how to run a classroom. Our most vulnerable students, those who face a truly unlevel playing field when it comes to formal education, are most likely taught by new teachers. Lacking proper, proven teaching tools and real side-by-side support to improve their practice, so many smart, passionate, eager teachers do not experience success in the classroom and ultimately leave the profession convinced they are not the right people for the job. And the cycle repeats. For 25 years, the Baltimore Curriculum Project, also known as BCP, has worked side by side with schools in providing proven practices and curriculum and best-in-class instructional coaches for our teachers. We do a lot besides that to support principals and teachers, but our mission has always centered around best practices and support. We operate 5, soon to be 6, conversion charter schools in Baltimore City, which means our schools are existing public schools which serve an enrollment zone. And before school joins BCP, we spend considerable time with the building's teachers, leadership, parents, and community, showing them what is happening in our other schools, answering questions, and getting to know each other. In fact, one of my favorite moments last year occurred when I brought the president of the parent-teacher organization from our newish school. I brought her to one of our existing schools, which many years ago was widely considered to be the worst school in Baltimore City. That was a long time ago, though. But within minutes of entering a middle school English classroom, she had tears streaming down her face. We had to hand her a box of tissues. She was deeply moved by the level of respect and engagement and student voice she saw, and she wanted that for her school. After we spent about a year with the school community, getting to know each other, the staff then votes to say, yes, we would like to partner with you. Please, let's come together. And there also be strong parent and community support, which I think gives us the best of all worlds. Schools which are struggling but want to do right by their students get the opportunity to join with a proven operator with 25 years of success under their belt. And I do want to nod to Baltimore City Public Schools. Many districts have an antagonistic relationship with charter schools, but Baltimore City welcomes operators who want to work with schools which need intensive support, and they unanimously approved our last application for our 6th school. So they are good partners in this work. My passion for this work started with my mother, who was an incredible special education teacher. Through her work and discussions around the dinner table, I grew up confident in my belief that all children can be taught to read. And when she received any praise on how successful she was in teaching students to read who had failed for many years, she always responded, well, I have a great program. I can teach anyone to read using this tool. So I thought, all right, we can teach anyone to read, need to have the right. And when complimented on how her students worked for her, her reply was, well, you have to figure out what motivates a child. Once you figure that out, they'll work their hardest for you. So I thought, okay, learn how to motivate kids. And thus was laid the foundation for the career that I've loved for so long. But back to BCP. We use direct instruction reading curricula developed by Zig Engelman. There is over 50 years of research and hundreds of studies supporting the effectiveness of these materials. And we can honestly say that we teach every student to read. When students experience success in school, a whole host of positive effects ensue. Mainly, kids like school. The parents like the school that make their beloved children happy. And this leads to a whole lot of learning and critical thinking, which can lead to liberation. We use core knowledge vehicle for teaching high-level content, starting in pre-K and continuing throughout our time with us. We know there is massive evidence linking a student's background knowledge and vocabulary strength with reading comprehension. Our pre-K kids can tell you about habitats and ecosystems and oviraptors. I had to learn what that one was. It's a dinosaur. And our kindergarten kids can talk to you about crops and irrigation, droughts, after studying the 5 minutes. So we start that early, intensive content, good content that teaches them about the world, gives them background knowledge. And then once they learn to read, when they hit those words, they know what they are because they've been talking about them for years. So it's a wonderful combination of a really strong phonics program and great content. We also use restorative practices. This is a really important component of our schools. Restorative practices is an important way by which we build relationships through daily community building circles and the way in which we repair relationships when damage has been done to the community. So the idea is that we get to know each other and get used to talking to each other through daily circles, classroom circles, where they take about 10 minutes and there's a prompt and kids form a physical circle and everybody shares a little something. Sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're serious, but they're a really useful way to get to know each other and build trust. And then when something goes wrong, that relationship is there, and we have a system for repairing that relationship. And it does involve a consequence usually, but also a path towards reconciliation, which is important because punishment alone just doesn't work. So that's a really important piece that all of our schools share. We also use the community school model. Every school has a community schools coordinator. Their job is to connect with families and work to eliminate any barrier which might keep a student from attending school every day ready to learn. So whether it's as simple as they don't have alarm clocks. Mom goes to work early in the morning and the kids sleep in because there's nobody in the house to wake them up. That's a simple solution. You can provide an alarm clock. To more complex issues, but it's important that families know they have a source that they can go to find resources or to help eliminate the barriers that are keeping their kids from showing up every day ready to learn. The word innovation is used extensively in education, and where best practice doesn't exist, innovation is necessary. But there are times when finding out what works, sticking with it, and adjusting it to your needs is the better plan. We think that at BCP, we are able to embrace and hold on to the key components of our model, which have worked for decades, and innovate in any area where there isn't clear evidence of the right path forward. If there were no examples of successful schools serving vulnerable children, we could say, well, it can't be done. If there was no curriculum with extensive evidence of effectiveness, we could be forgiven for trying out a new reading program every few years based on the latest, I'm going to say the word fad. Okay. And if there wasn't well-researched best practices for many aspects of teaching, learning, and running schools, we could all sigh, shrug, and say, well, what can we do? But there are successful schools serving students with high poverty rates, students who have experienced trauma, and it can be done. There's a reading curriculum with decades of research showing that we can effectively teach all students to read, and there are ways to build relationships among staff, students, and families so that our schools become welcoming, supportive places for our school communities. Our students have unlimited potential. It is up to us as educators to use our carefully crafted, hard-won superpowers to release that potential. There's a deep joy in leading an organization in whose work you can pour your whole heart into. What started with a commitment by BCP to a reading program has grown into a whole school model serving over 3,000 kids. So I just want to thank you for listening, everyone, and thank you again, Bart, for this opportunity.